With the Infinity Castle movie finally here, now's the perfect time to dive into 12 powerful and surprising facts that'll completely change how you see this arc. Plus, stick around to the end for 2 extra rare bonus facts that almost no one talks about. Starting off with Kaigaku. He was the only modern demon slayer to become an Upper Moon. Kaigaku was promoted to upper rank 6 after Daki and Gyutaro were killed. And while that's already a big deal, here's what makes it even crazier. He's one of only 2 Upper Moons in history who were originally demon slayers. The other one is, of course, Kokushibo, the first demon slayer to become a demon. But unlike Kokushibo, Kaigaku was born in the present day. He trained under the former Thunder Hashira Jigoro, just like Zenitsu. He was Zenitsu's senior, and before that, he was also one of the orphans who were under Guillaume's care. He was the one who sold out the kids to a demon and even took out the incense so the demon could invade their home. Or in plain English, he was total trash who betrayed his caretaker, his fellow orphans, and then even his master Jigoro by becoming a demon. Our Thunder Grandpa ended up committing seppuku out of shame for Kaigaku's betrayal. Neither Kaigaku nor Zenitsu could fully absorb their mentor's teaching. Such is the tragedy of thunder breathing. Next, Zenitsu is the only non-Hashira to have done feats specifically only Hashira have ever done before. You see, creating a new original form of one's breathing style is a legendary feat. And one example of a character who accomplished this is Gyu, who created the 11th form of water breathing. Now, defeating an Upper Moon demon in a 1v1 is also a legendary feat, and one example of a character who accomplished this is Moichiro, who defeated Upper Moon 5 Gyoko all by himself. Of course, both of these feats are the pinnacle of Hashira level feats, but let me tell you that Zenitsu, to defeat Upper Moon 6 Kaigaku, Zenitsu created a new form of thunder breathing, the 7th form Flaming Thunder God. By the way, Zenitsu being able to only use the 1st form and the 7th form which he created leads to a very wholesome fact that rarely gets mentioned in the Demon Slayer fandom. Back before any tragedy happened in the Kamado household, Nezuko's brother Takeo asked her about her ideal man, and she said, "It would be great if I could meet a man like Ahisha." In shogi, Ahisha is like the rook in chess. It can move as far as it wants, vertically or horizontally. But the cool part is, when Ahisha reaches the enemy territory, it gets promoted to a Ryu Oyu, which means Dragon King. Now, fast forward to Zenitsu. He only ever mastered the 1st form of thunder breathing, which moves straight and fast, kinda like that rook-style motion. But as we just discussed, during his fight with Kaigaku in the Infinity Castle, he created his own 7th form, Flaming Thunder God, and for the first time, he appeared as a yellow lightning dragon slashing straight into enemy territory. This is exactly how Ahisha becomes a Dragon King in shogi. What do you think? I mean, honestly, I wouldn't blame you if this is the first time you're hearing about this. This comes from some extra manga pages that were published in Jump Giga Volume 1 back in 2016. In this arc, we learn that Shinobu infused her entire body with 37 kilograms of wisteria poison in order to kill upper rank 2 Doma. That was said to be 70 times the lethal dosage required to kill a demon. But did you know this number was later changed in the manga? The original manga chapter stated that it was 70 times the lethal dosage, but the author changed it to 700 times in the volume edition. Just how the hell did Shinobu survive with that amount of poison in her body? Keep in mind that it's not 700 times the lethal dosage required to kill humans, but demons. The answer is simple. She built up resistance over time by taking small doses of wisteria, so her body could handle a massive amount just long enough to carry out her plan. She knew it was going to kill her eventually, and it was her own willpower that allowed her to survive long enough to execute the plan. We always knew that Shinobu's heart was full of rage, and much of that rage was reserved for Doma, the demon who killed her sister. Next, this one's gonna hit hard for the Shinobu x Gyu shippers. You see, when Shinobu's death is announced, Gyu is the only Hashira who's completely taken aback. Every other Hashira, including Mitsuri, knew about her kamikaze plan, but Gyu had no idea. Shinobu's constant teasing may have been her way of keeping Gyu from feeling alone. And it may have also been a way to help herself cope with the rage she carried after losing her sister to the demons. And although she was always real with Gyu, she couldn't bring herself to tell him she planned to die. As for Gyu, the moment the crow announces her death, he recalls Shinobu's smiling face. Once again, someone he cared about died before him. And did you know, Gyu's mark appeared where his best friend Sabato once slapped him? All of us remember Sabato and Makomo from the first arc who helped Tanjiro finish his training before the final section. As it turned out, Sabato was actually Gyu's best friend, and the only one who died while protecting everyone in the final selection. For the longest time, Gyu felt empty because he thought it would have been better if he had died instead of Sabato. First, he lost his sister, who gave her life to protect him, and then he lost Sabato, who did the same. It's no wonder Gyu felt like he didn't deserve to live. Later in the Infinity Castle arc, during the battle against Akaza, Gyu's Demon Slayer mark appears in the exact same spot where Sabato slapped him. It's so poetic. The emergence of the mark is to show that he's still with him. Now, speaking of the battle against Akaza, let me explain how Tanjiro basically uses Ultra Instinct against him. Akaza fought using his Compass Needle Blood Demon art, which senses an opponent's fighting spirit. This, of course, made sure that he always had the upper hand. But the moment Tanjiro enters the selfless state, he effectively makes himself invisible to Akaza's senses. He essentially became like a plant with zero hostility. Only 3 known characters have ever achieved the selfless state: Tanjiro, Tanjiro's father Tanjiro, and the OG Yoriichi. Now, the selfless state wasn't enough against Akaza. Tanjiro also awakened the transparent world. He was able to see Akaza's muscles and blood flow. Finally, he used the sun-breathing form's setting sun transformation to land a perfect, undetectable strike. It really is like Ultra Instinct. Tanjiro completely bypasses Akaza's instincts and strikes from a place of total calm. Next is arguably the most heartbreaking moment in the entire arc. It's the final scene between Genya and Sanemi. Genya's body is literally falling apart. He's fading away in real time, but for the first time since Sanemi had to put their mother down, he opens up. In fact, he completely breaks down and begs God not to take his little brother away. But Genya couldn't hear a single word. His ears had already disintegrated. Still, I'm sure Genya knew exactly what his brother meant. Even without words, true brothers can understand each other. And let's talk about how Kokushibo offered to turn Muichiro into a demon to spare his life. Literally a deal with the devil, basically. But Muichiro refused. Of course he did. He was Kokushibo's descendant, but not an insecure scumbag like him. He fights to the very end. Even with one arm left and on the verge of death, he finds enough strength to thrust his bright red blade into Kokushibo's body to burn his flesh from the inside just to slow his regeneration. It's so poetic how Kokushibo's own descendant ultimately burns him from the inside. By the way, the two don't just share blood, they were also both born as twins. Plus, Muichiro shares the letter M with Kokushibo's human name, Michikatsu. Coincidentally, Muichiro's older twin brother, Yuichiro, shares the initial Y with Michikatsu's younger twin brother, Yoriichi Sugikuni. And to add to this, both Muichiro and Yuichiro have the character for 1 in their names, while Kokushibo holds the position of upper rank 1. Speaking of Kokushibo, did you notice that he cried with only half his eyes during the final moment? We know that he didn't die after decapitation. In fact, he started regenerating his own head back. But Muichiro's red blade and the other accumulated wounds had already made it so Kokushibo's regeneration was unstable. His regeneration began to fail, and that's when he noticed the small flute he had kept in his robes all these centuries for over 400 years. It's the same flute he once gave to Yoriichi. Even though Kokushibo couldn't remember his own wife or child, he still had the flute that he picked up after Yoriichi passed away. This was the contradiction in his character. He loved him just as much as he hated him, and the manga shows this contradiction perfectly. In chapter 178, as he recalls Yoriichi's final moments during his own final moments, 3 of his 6 eyes shed tears while the other 3 remained dry. This is the biggest what if in Demon Slayer. What if his love for his brother had prevailed over his hate and jealousy? As I've always said, Kokushibo could have been the moon to his brother's sun. Those were some pretty good facts, but I'm also gonna give you 2 bonus facts that almost no one talks about. I mean, did you know that Kokushibo was challenged 3 times for his position as the upper moon in the past 4 centuries? In the first 2 of these battles, he absorbed the loser and became even stronger. But in the 3rd battle against Akaza, he let Akaza live because he actually kind of enjoyed the fight. To add to Kokushibo's body count, it's revealed in the extra pages of Volume 21 that he also killed the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps. This was back during the Sengoku period when the security wasn't as tight. It was also this incident that caused Kakashi attendant forces to be formed. The second bonus fact is how after the events of the story, Zenitsu went on to write a 79-volume memoir titled The Legend of Zenitsu. I'm talking about the extra pages from the final volume and also the extra material from the Demon Slayer Gotoge Koyoharu Exhibition 2021. Zenitsu started writing it after Tanjiro warned him not to exaggerate his leg injuries just to get sympathy massages from Nezuko. Here's some of the borderline nonsense he wrote. Zenitsu claimed he became Hashira despite retiring before the Demon Slayer Corps was dissolved. So when did that happen? He described himself as being an absurd 9 feet tall menace with strong facial hair and a ridiculously muscular build. Next, he claimed Tanjiro went into massive debt and abandoned Nezuko, but then later changed it to Tanjiro paying off his debt and becoming Zenitsu's apprentice. He even said Inosuke was a demon at one point, but then rewrote it again to say Inosuke was one of his followers. Zenitsu portrayed Sanemi as a thief with a goatee and Gyu as an ugly guy because he was jealous of both of them. Sanemi for showing Nezuko affection and Gyu for being too good looking. And as for Nezuko, she was first a princess, then later a plum tree spirit. He described her in painstaking detail right down to the exact number of her eyelashes. Zenitsu even included a highly detailed illustration of her to accompany it. And speaking of his illustrations, Zenitsu created paintings of Nezuko that were so detailed and realistic they were like photographs. On several occasions, he was asked to sell his paintings, only to become so angry that he would yell, "What kind of man would sell his wife?" This is kinda wholesome when you realize that Zenitsu was honey-trapped by 7 girls before he even met Nezuko. Anyways, although most of his memoir was nonsense, as he grew older and matured, he also added a completely accurate passage titled The Life of Happiness Arc, with everything based on the truth. If you learned something new or just got hit in the feels all over again, check out my other Demon Slayer videos, especially the MVP of each Demon Slayer arc explained.